Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to Blackout Radio with the Dunnz boys.
What's good, man?
You tell me what's good.
Man, we're going to give a shout out to Lexington United basketball team, 12U, 6th graders. You know, we putting on for the city and doing what we supposed to be doing, destroying everything moving in the city. You know, so I definitely like to give a shout out to my boys, man. They really have bought into the system and they looking good. I think out of the 9 games we have played, I know we have probably beat at least 5 teams by 50 or more. The closest game that we have had is 13 and 17 points. So now it's time to really look for a little bit more stiffer competition, because our boys are the real deal. So I'd definitely like to give a shout out to Lexington United 6th grade 12U basketball team. We in the city and we coming for you. So as the only announcement I have is, if you in the 6th grade, watch out. We coming for you, and it's Project No Let Up. We don't care. We're gonna beat you by 100 if we can. We're gonna press the whole game if they allow us to press the whole game. And this, you can call it bad sportsmanship or not. I call it stay ready and you ain't gotta get ready. Oh.
That's what's up. Hey, Mr. B Jizzle, we got myself. I'm Corey, the king of controversy. That was Brendan Dunn, the mayor you just heard. We got the future, B Jizzle, not future, but the future, our future, B Jizzle in the crib. I mean the building. BJ, if you don't mind, would you please tell us about your people's boxing this weekend?
Yeah, dude I go to school with, G, has just won his boxing match this weekend. Got him a good W representing.
That's what's up. What's his name?
G.
Does he have a full name? Is his boxing name? He just goes by G?
Yeah, he just goes by G.
Okay, that's what's up.
He must be a G. Everybody a G till they get knocked out. Hey, but then you can still be a G.
It happens.
You just gotta, you know, roll with the punches, I guess.
Right.
Hey man, today's episode, Blackout Radio, we definitely gonna be busting up. We're gonna be talking about the new face of terrorism in America. That was on the program for last week, but we wasn't able to get into it. We definitely gonna be talking about self-esteem, Maslow. Let folks know who he is, and also the Graves model. Let folks know what that is. But if you don't have any more announcements, we're gonna get right back into the show. The new face of terrorism in America. And for whatever reason, we haven't heard anything about terrorism in America, even though there's an awful lot of school shootings. There's bombings going on that folks ain't talking about. You know, people in school with AR-15s to make students feel like there's a need to have gun control, new legislation out, and you telling me that these aren't acts of terrorism?
Depends on who you ask. If I'm the person in the classroom when somebody comes in with an AR, well, let's talk about that. I mean, there has been times where people have used AR-15s, but for the most part, when there's a school shooting, it's a handgun. So, oh, he had rifles in the car and he had rifles in the trunk. Yeah, but they was in the trunk. He walked in the building with pistols. A majority of the school shootings are taking place with handguns. That's one thing you don't talk about. Then we talk about terrorism. I bet you everybody in that classroom is terrified. If you ask them children at Frederick Douglass when that gun went off, if they were happy or giggling and laughing, or was they terrified?
Well, I know that for one, they was real terrified. They said the teacher was so terrified, in fact, that he or she, whatever it was, took off running and left all the students in the classroom and never returned. I don't know if she went or he went to go get help. All I know is the teacher took off running and left the rest of the students in the classroom with the so-called gunman. So whoever that teacher was had to be scared. You know, I heard there's a lot of conversation out here about these brave students marching, you know, and I kind of still look at it the same thing as the march that took place here in the city, where you had the students taking up a march with no plan afterwards. You know, the students, they say, yeah, we want gun legislation. We want gun laws. Well, what gun laws do you want? You know, I think that they are really acting out of pure emotion. I feel the other ones are jumping on the bandwagon and following emotionally driven children that don't know too much about what's going on in this world anyway. So I know the Democrats love the conversation about gun laws, gun legislation, taking guns and making sure nobody has guns and doesn't have the ability to protect themselves adequately. When you're looking at I guess the powers that be a military, if you look at the law, it's the reason why you have the right to bear arms. You should be able to bear arms with the same type of weaponry as those in the military, just in case they wanted to come and violate us or take over and not give us any rights. How are you going to protect yourself with a 6-shooter and somebody has an AR-15 or AK-47 or whatever they might want to come down on you with? So, I think a lot of these students need to stay students. I think they need to do a lot of research on gun legislation, because if they're talking about gun laws, new gun legislation, and trying to create the dialogue or create new laws, trying to have guns removed, a certain type of guns removed from our society, they might need to first look at the other countries that have real strict gun laws and gun legislation, which majority of those countries are dictatorships. People talking about, we don't want no dictatorship. We want to just stop the age of people buying guns. That's not going to work. You got 300 million guns in circulation, so you're not going to stop the guns from getting in the hands of whoever wants a gun. But if you do start getting people to stop having high capacity magazines, the issue that you're going to run into are the criminals that want to take whatever it is you have are not going to give up their high capacity magazines. So they're the ones that's going to be in power. So, that's just, something that I'm looking at. But, if you got something to say, you could go ahead and get into it. But we're going to still stick to the script and get into this new face of terrorism and why there's in fact a face of terrorism and it's new. Or I can't even say that it's new, because it's been around. It's the face of terrorism in America has been very visible on every continent in the world except for America. So now we have set free the destructive power in our own country, and I haven't heard anything yet on the new war on terrorism in America yet. When is that conversation gonna come out?
It would take for you to go to Tuskegee, Alabama, to a Nation of Islam Holy Day of Atonement, and hear people have conversations. And one of the conversations that I heard a couple years ago when I went to the Holy Day of Atonement down in Alabama, there was a professor at what is that school? I'm drawing a blank. That is horrible. It's all black school, George Washington Carver School. Anyway, the professor he gets up there and he says, Europeans are the skunks of human civilization. I said, what? White people are the skunks? He said, yeah, they're skunks. Anywhere they go, they leave a trail. And that they've been there based on, the effects and the consequences of everything that they do. So you can see where they've been even if they're already gone. So when you start talking about this new face of terrorism, it doesn't fit the narrative. We can't call Europeans, who make up the majority, terrorists, because only a small percentage of them are committing crimes. So they don't want to demonize an entire race of European people or ethnic group of Caucasians and say that they're terrorists, even though statistically speaking, white males are the ones responsible for the majority of all the mass shootings in American history. But we can't put that narrative out there because it doesn't match. White makes right. White is godly and pure and clean and holy and good. So white people can't possibly be terrorists. They're disturbed when they do something wrong. And it's only a percentage of people who are disturbed. And that's where the Maslow hierarchy of needs, that's where Graves comes in. That's where, self-esteem and self-efficacy and self-confidence and self-respect and all that stuff plays into and it comes into play. So when we talk about the new face of terrorism, It is my belief that we are creating the terrorists.
And who's we?
American society.
So are you part of that society?
Unfortunately, yes and no.
So are you responsible for creating that narrative? Can you actually group yourself in with them? Are you even an American? I mean, for them, it sounds like now you speaking French.
No, I'm saying we because I take ownership and responsibility for my actions. So in the event that I don't do things to help reduce the gun violence, in the event that I don't do things to help reduce the race relations, in the event that I don't do things that holds the government accountable, that holds the police department accountable, that holds individual citizens accountable, that if I'm not spreading the narrative and the communication about why guns matter, if I'm not the one that's out there actively telling people that, reducing, you talk about high capacity magazines. How hard is it to make a magazine? It's very simple. So you can ban high capacity magazines as long as I have a firearm that can accept a magazine. I can make a high capacity magazine.
So what they can say is you can't have them, but if you're caught with them, that's when the issue is going to come. People just think about how stupid it is for somebody to try to create legislation on what you can't have that's already out to the universe in the hundreds of thousands, if not possibly millions of high capacity magazines floating around America. We're not talking about the world, we're talking about floating around America. So if you look at California, they're not allowed to have high capacity magazines. If you look at New York, they're not allowed to have high capacity magazines. But anytime you hear of anything gang related, it seems like the gangbangers not only have high capacity magazines, but they also have full autos. So you can't tell someone by a law. It's almost just like when somebody says, I have a restraining order out on my baby daddy. That's gonna keep him away.
Piece of paper. A
piece of paper gonna keep him. As soon as the police leave, he gonna jump right out of the bushes, kick down your door, drag you back down the stairs. That piece of paper ain't gonna do nothing to keep that man away. The only thing that's gonna keep somebody from doing something wrong is if they're locked up or if they're dead.
Or if they don't have access.
Well, 100 million guns in circulation, so there's access. Where are the kids getting these guns at? There's plenty of access. A kid will break in your room and take your guns.
They're breaking your car.
they gonna get a gun regardless. They're breaking your car. They're breaking the gun store. So I mean, the only thing that I can see somebody regulating, the government actually doing to regulate to slow down the guns, is actually regulating the amount of guns that can be produced on an annual cycle. So
how do you do that?
You let the companies know that they can only produce a X amount of weapons.
How do you do that?
You just put it out to the companies.
I mean, like, realistically speaking, how do you do that? How do I go to Nike and tell them you can only make 6 pair of Jordans a year? Does that make sense? No. Do I go to Budweiser and tell Budweiser y'all can only produce Bud and Bud Light and y'all can only produce 500,000 bottles when they produce 1 million bottles a day? Well, we talking about a capitalistic society.
It used to be laws, on alcohol prohibition. You're not allowed to.
And look how that happened.
You can't create it. You can't make it. So it can be enforced.
You look at the gun situation, man. We gonna tell you how many guns you can make. We don't want high capacity magazines. What happened in World War II in Vietnam? Everybody had AK-47s, SKSs. How many do we have in the United States of America right now? No less than 2 million, which means every SKS comes with a extended magazine.
But when you look,
every AK-47 got a banana clip on it. So you talking about anywhere from 2 to 4 million of these weapons in the United States in circulation right now.
If you look at it, the Norenkos and all the AK-47s that came in during that era, they might have been $50 to $85. They stopped producing them, and now they up to as high as even the old ones. $500 or $600. So if you put a cap on the amount of guns that can be produced on an annual basis, the price of the guns are gonna go up which means folks that can't buy them, they might start stealing them, but for the most part, there are not going to be as many guns in circulation because that people aren't going to continuously buy guns because they're not going to be able to afford them. Now, you can go in the gun store, you can buy a gun for $100. You can buy a gun, 2 or 3, you could buy a $300 gun that's actually going to be a pretty good quality. But if you put a cap on the amount of production of those guns, that $300 gun is going to go up to $600. So everybody's not going to be very, very quick to buy guns. Then they might go buy ammunition, but the issue is the amount of guns and the high capacity magazines. So if right now the AR, one of the most popular selling guns right now, you can go buy an AR for $600. You could buy one for $400 used. You put a cap on the number of ARs that's being made, they might shoot back up to $1,000.
Let's take the SKS with a stripper clip. How many stripper clips can you hold?
Where, in your pocket, bug out bag?
I mean, if you determine you're gonna do something, you're gonna be you prepared. Any police officer I see, they don't have any high capacity magazines that I'm aware of. I've never seen a cop with an extendo. However, I've seen every cop I have seen now, they all issued Glocks, and they have a magazine in the Glock, and they have 2 magazines on their hip. So you're talking about 17, 17, and 17. That's still a whole lot of bullets. So the 5 seconds it takes to reload, what difference does it make? That 5 seconds ain't gonna change nothing. Not when you're talking about I'm determined I'm gonna kill everything moving. So I think that the ignorance and public perception is what builds or what supports the ignorance. They had this whole propaganda campaign about anti-guns, no guns, no guns, no guns, no violence. People have been killing each other since the beginning of the time. You don't need a gun to kill people. So the violence is going to continue. Death is going to continue as a result of the violence. Stopping guns is not going to do it. But the problem that I have is that people don't understand the psychology behind everything. And that's where you get into Maslow. That's when you get into the Graves model. That's when we get into self-esteem. And one of the things that we didn't mention, and I think that is very, very important, is self-talk. Negative self-talk. The reason why we have mass shootings, the reason why we have a new face of terrorism or old face of terrorism that keeps coming back every so many years, the reason why we have gun violence in the street, self-talk.
You say self-talk?
Self-talk. Yeah, T-A-L-K, self-talk. I tell myself, and this is where self-esteem comes into play. I have high self-esteem. I'm confident. I know that I'm a man. I also know, because I listen to rap music, that a man is never supposed to let a man disrespect him. So the minute somebody disrespects me, I have to check him. That is my belief. My self-talk is, Brennan's over there looking at me, I'll sell it. I ought to hit him in his mouth. But he might whoop me. Cause I know I ain't no fighter. I tell myself, hey, I can't afford to take a L. I can't afford to get beat up because then BJ's going to be sitting here laughing at me. Brennan's going to be on Snapchat and Instagram putting it all over the place. So I can't do that. So my self-talk says the only option I have is that to be a man, I can't let you disrespect me. And my self-talk says I can't afford to take an L in a fist fight. I got to shoot you.
So is your self-talk based on your ethnicity and your cultural understanding? Is everybody's self-talk, whether they're European, Chinese, Hispanic, African, is it the same, or is it based on the culture of the ethnicity of the individual?
To my understanding, it's a situation where it's a little bit of both. Culturally speaking, there are cultural norms within a black community that is not normal in a Hispanic or Asian or a Caucasian community. There are things that Caucasians do that black, Hispanics, and Asians don't. There's things that Pacific Islanders do that are specific to them, and their level of understanding and self-talk is based on that. In America, for instance, most of us are raised as Christians. So our self-talk is that this is good, this is bad, based on what the Bible says. Our self-talk says that, you know, this is what it means to be man. This is what it means to be a black man. And we do have self-talk within our culture that says, oh, no, I'm a black man. I ain't doing this. I ain't doing that. it may not be based on anything actual or factual, but if your belief is that this is true, then that would dictate your behavior, which is what has a lot to do with Maslow and the Graves model.
So let's wrap up at Face of Terrorism. I'm looking at the Face of Terrorism, where right now America's fighting and engaged in a war of terrorism overseas, where they are saying that they have to fight an enemy of terrorism. Basically, their ethnicity is a spiritual or a religious group. So they want to fight Islam. That seems like that's a war that America right now is engaged in overseas. And in order to keep that enemy from coming over to our land, they have to fight that enemy and continue to stomp out Islam nationalists, Islamist extremists overseas, to make sure that they don't come over here. And while they putting so much effort in fighting these extremists overseas, domestic terrorism, which I haven't heard anything about domestic terrorism on the news. Fox News, CNN, ABC, whatever you want to call it, I have not seen anything about domestic terrorism. And when you start seeing bombs going off, you start seeing school shooting after school shooting, because the first thing they're going to say is, okay, when somebody's a terrorist and they're over here and they not engaged in the war overseas, they're going to call them extremists. And they're gonna, what's that other term that they love to use when they're radical, but they sympathizer.
Yeah, he's a Muslim sympathizer.
Yeah, so then this is why he did what he did. So okay, you have a school shooting in Kentucky, then you have one in Florida, then say you have one in Baltimore, Maryland, or wherever. You don't think that these guys are sympathizing with each other and they're basically working within the same cell? Well, now maybe they're not the same cell because they're not connected and communicating, but they're identifying with each other to keep the destruction and the terrorism going. One guy
I would look at it from a different standpoint. With the Middle Eastern terrorists, I think it's totally different.
It is.
I look at the Portofino situation here in Lexington. I look at different situations in America. The culture is not being corrected. The activities are not being corrected. They're just punishing the participants. So we can destroy, let's say we as a nation, America, as Americans, we can, I just say we to include myself because people get upset. I'm not an American because they took my rights. So I know I'm not an American. But beyond that, they could kill ISIS and every member of ISIS right now. The terrorism would still come back. Just as strong as now, if not stronger. Because the United States government is still responsible for the oppression of the people in the Middle East. When you exploit a group of people, their self-talk is, those Americans don't have a right to treat us the way they do. Some people are going to be battered enough to say, you know what, y'all don't have a right to treat us the way I do, and I'm willing to die over that. So they self-talk is going to continue to exist. You kill every member of ISIS right now. Their children are going to grow up saying, those Americans, those dirty, nasty, rotten Americans killed my daddy. They burned down the church. They blew up our mosque. They did this and that. Eventually you get sick and tired of being sick and tired, and when your back's pushed against the wall and you don't care anymore, self-talk says, you know what, let's teach them a lesson. That's why we got gangsters in the street in America out of control. That's why we got terrorism overseas out of control. And ain't neither one of them coming to an end. You've been fighting a war on drugs for how long? 20 years? 30 years? You've been fighting a war on terror for what, 20 years? 30 years? There is no end in sight. Because the oppression hasn't stopped. The conditions that create the conditions that create the climate for terrorism are getting worse. They're not getting better. The middle class is getting smaller. The lower class is getting larger. Taxes are going out the wazoo. We got a president who's doing everything he can to support the rich, but the poor keep losing. Eventually you get tired of losing. Eventually you get tired of getting bopped upside your head, and eventually you be like, you know what? And this is the self-talk that you have, not word for word, but it's an example. America bops you upside the head. Ooh, that hurt. America, bow, ooh, I'm tired of getting hit upside the head. You keep getting hit upside the head, and eventually you be like, you know what? Hey, y'all, when America comes back, I'm going to still him in his mouth. I don't care if he kills me or not. I'm going to hit him one. He's going to feel me. He's going to feel that one good punch. And that's what we're dealing with. The self-talk is not going to change until the culture changes. When America finally says, you know what? We're going to stop being oppressive to the least desirable countries, one of which is Iran, Iraq, and all the Middle Eastern companies that are not in bed with American government, like Israel, the problems will go away.
But now what happens about this new face of terrorism in America, where you got the guy in Nevada, Las Vegas? He wasn't oppressed. He had plenty of money. This little young guy that decided he's gonna shoot up the school, he had plenty of money. So now you're looking at Europeans that have not been oppressed. They have plenty of money to buy as many guns that they want. Upper middle class Europeans that feel like they want to go into schools. They not been oppressed. You know,
based on what?
Based on what you just mentioned as far as oppression. Lower class,
the middle class in America is shrinking.
Middle class shrinking.
The majority of middle class is white folks. White folks are getting very, very poor. They're being oppressed. It's a different type of oppression, but they suffer from oppression the same way we do.
But not
well, not the same way, but they suffer from white supremacy. For instance, they will blame you. America's oppressive. So they mistreat black people for 400 years. Then they say, well, here's what we're going to do. To make it better, we're going to give them affirmative action, and we're going to give them minority grants. So all you blackies can go to college, and all you blackies can go get a job. We'll pick one or two of y'all out of the bunch, and we'll set the quota. Then the white dude who goes to college, works hard every day, he says, I can't get the job because of affirmative action. He doesn't say I'm not the best qualified candidate for the job. He says, the blackies took the job. His self-talk makes him feel like he's being oppressed, whether he's being oppressed to the same extent as you are or not.
And I could believe that if they went on I guess was a guy's name, was his name Dylan Roof, the one that went into church?
To start the race war.
Yeah, you know, if you had more Europeans acting out in that fashion, I say, okay. If the school shooter went to a predominantly African school, a school in the inner city area, or even a private school full of Africans and gunned and mowed them down. If the Nevada shooter went to a hip hop concert, you know, because there was a...
He did. He was in Vegas the same time we went.
And actually,
he had intentions of shooting up the iHeart Music Festival, and then he said, well, no, there's another festival in Chicago, maybe I'll go there. He didn't get it worked out, so he just waited the next week for the country music festival and shot it up. But he had intentions of shooting up the iHeart Music Festival.
If anybody out there hates Blackie and he's an extremist that hates darkies, or if you're an extremist that hates Whitey, you're not gonna settle for, well, I hate Blackie, so, well, I'm gonna settle for killing Whitey. If you hate Whitey and you're gonna go and you're an extremist and you're gonna gun down Whitey, you're not gonna say, you know what, man, I'm gonna settle for Darky. I mean, it is just not gonna happen. You gonna have a hate towards whatever it is you're hating, and it's just right now it doesn't seem like it's even racially motivated.
It's probably
economically motivated. It just seems like it's just violently motivated, and I think violence is the only motivation, is to want to kill based on, I can't necessarily say society, but if you look at society and the part the society plays as far as, for instance, the AR. The AR is the standard for guns. If you say, okay, I want a gun, you're gonna look at a AR, you're gonna look at a Glock to say that you actually have something that is gonna put in some work. So once you get the AR, what is the AR based on? The AR is based on the American military, the strongest force in the world. That's what American uses. You know, a lot of other countries, you know, Russian and Chinese, they still use the AK-47. But if you have your AR, an American-made AR, that strength is based on what society says the United States military is the strongest force. So if you want to be the strongest force and you want to have power, you want to be in power, you're going to get you an AR, because you're going to have that internal belief that nothing's gonna be able to stop that bullet once you start pulling that trigger. So now you have a lot of folks out there from which, you know, when you start looking at mainstream media, because we're not talking about in the hood. You know, the shootings and murders have been going on forever. The students did not care anything about having any protests about shootings in the hood. This is all based on the AR-15 European coming to town, gunning down schools, and now the students are saying that they in fear. I don't know if that's actually what's going on, but somebody created that thought, and now students are running with that thought that they are scared of the AR-15, which in reality they're looking in the mirror and they should actually be fearful and scared of the United States military. The United States military and everything that our country has put in front of the students, everything that they are putting on TV. Look at all the movies, man. If you look at the movies, Out, American Sniper, Lone Survivor, you know, you have the Benghazi attacks. Look at all the violent movies that are cheered and honored for people that are very, very violent and using these type of assault rifles to kill. The only difference is they're not killing Europeans. They're killing people of color. But the Europeans here still want the same power that the American military and the people in power in America have, but they don't have the same enemy. You can't cut that off. It's being created by America, by Europeans, and the younger Europeans want and have that same thirst for the same exact power as their forefathers. But now their enemy has changed. They're turning the gun on other Europeans.
It's not the first time it happened. If you look at the war on terror in the Middle East, which is the war on Islam, ain't that the same thing as the Crusades? The Crusades was a war on Islam. Christians versus Muslims. Now we got Christians versus Muslims with the help of a couple of the Jews. You know, Palestine. Israel, I'm sorry. Same difference. It's a holy war, spiritual war. That's why both sides will continue to fight to the end of the days. If I believe my God is right and you believe your God is right, I have the true God, you have the true God, we can fight for it. I'm not going to give up. I will not falter. I will not waver when it comes to my spiritual faith and my belief. So if my belief is that God's name is Allah and your belief is that God's name is Jesus, we can go toe to toe until the cows come home. It is what it is. The culture is being created by the United States of America. And then the Americans turn around and have the audacity to get mad when they have to deal with the negative consequences of their actions. You know, Americans will tell you, oh, you got to break a couple eggs to make an omelet. Can't make an omelet without breaking a couple eggs. True. Collateral damage. Y'all have beliefs that it's okay to kill some of your own in war just to win. You know, when you start talking about violent culture, who else has dropped a bomb on a country? I mean, on a city, besides the United States government? So you start talking about the new face of terrorism. No, how's it a new face? Do you not think that those 500,000, which is they say they believe is a lowball estimate, of people in Japan, do you think those people were terrified when an atomic bomb came and swept through the whole freaking city? That was terrific, or terrifying for those people, I'm sure. So the issue is not necessarily terror, it's perception of terror. When white people do it, it's okay. They have manifest destiny. God, Jesus, white people, the majority of Europeans consider Jesus to be God. So their God, Jesus Christ, white Jesus with the blue eyes and the long stringy blonde hair, gives them the right to go and kill everybody across the earth. So that's why it's not terrorism when they do it. It's manifest destiny. God has ordained them to take over and control the world. So it's not terrorism when they do it. That's why it's terrorism when we act out of pocket, because we're not acting in line or in accordance with their personal beliefs or ideology.
They're gonna be in trouble when they realize that they have the power, because you have your military forces spread out in every single country throughout the world. And when they realize that the police, they realize that the National Guard do not really have the capabilities of stopping an assault from several armed gunmen running through the city with AR-15s, high capacity magazines, Glock 17s with 30 round magazines. That's when the problems are going to start. When you get a ruthless group of young visionaries that want to start taking over this country, understanding that the real soldiers are over war fighting a false war. So right now, who's protecting home? You build up a military home with the ability to protect your home, with the ability to crush anything that comes your way. But once you build up a military and you start outsourcing the military all across the world to try to, I mean, look at Napoleon, look at your boy Hitler. Y'all didn't learn from these Europeans what happens when you spread your military too thin?
Well, let's talk about that. Oh, but first, check your messages. I just got a text message from my main man. Keith Coleman needs a nickname. We didn't even give him a radio nickname. But he said Black Wall Street was an act of terrorism. And I agree with him 100%. That was definitely terrorism.
It definitely was.
But as far as the numbers games that you talking about being spread too thin, who says the United States military is the most powerful military on the face of this earth? And what is that based on?
It's based on America.
Right. Because let's look at the numbers. 2.2 million soldiers in China. 1 million in Russia, which gives us approximately 3.2 million soldiers. United States military only got 1.5. Now, I don't know how many people remember the BRICS that we was talking about. You got Brazil, you got Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Those 5 countries are in league with each other. So in the event that a war was to pop off, all 5 of them would be allies. With that being said, 17% of the world's population resides within those 5 countries.
See, they're going to base their military strength on
bombs,
vessels, bombs, and airplanes.
This is true. However,
and then you gonna move on down to tanks.
Who's okay? Now let's talk about that stuff. Russia, Mother Russia. You think Russia's a punk? China. Why you think everybody's afraid to go to war with China? Half of our textiles and materials come from China right now. We go to war with China. That tariff stuff that Trump is trying to do. We're gonna embargo taxes and tariffs and this and that on China. China say we shutting stuff down. We in the world, in this country, we as consumers are all in trouble. Everything we get comes from China or Taiwan. Ain't nothing made in America no more, or Korea. You know, we not thinking about those type of things. So when you have a big country, yes, we may have this nation, American may have the most bombs and tanks. How many nuclear weapons does it really take? All I got to do is if Kim Jong-un in Korea says that he has the capacity to launch nuclear warheads all the way to Florida, what makes you think Russia ain't already there? Because they have nuclear warheads. Been having them since the 60s.
Thing that makes you the American folks should be shook on it and put them into realization is majority of the anti-bomb equipment that they're saying, oh, if they shoot one, we'll shoot it out of air, don't work. When was the last time America has tested an anti-aircraft missile from when somebody trying to shoot a long-range missile?
No one's ever shot one but us, as in this nation. Americans are the only one. We the devil country. We the worst of the worst.
It's not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen. You know, you're not gonna be able to shoot. For one, now you got low missiles that's flying under radar, going. I don't even know the type of nautical speeds that they're going to where they can't be detected. Matter of fact, Russia just came out with one, said it can't be detected, and it's a long range missile. I mean, so you know.
But in my opinion, we thinking too white.
I
hate to say that.
That
but we
is
thinking
why
we thinking too American.
That is why you're thinking about all this big stuff, and now you have a new face of terrorism, domestic terrorism in America that's ripping the back out of America. People aren't scared of Muslims anymore. They're scared of Tommy coming into their school with their little Samantha and Kaylee, and they're gonna shoot up their little daughters. That's the new face of terrorism, and that's what is on the minds of all Americans across this world, across America, is the new face of domestic terrorism. And it's not the Afghans. For once, it's not the Negros, the darkies, the black folks. It's Europeans, but for whatever reason, no one is talking about this new face of terrorism. They're talking about a whole lot of other stuff.
Well, everybody's talking about guns because guns are the weapons that are being used. But let's look at history. Like the Spaniards. I was talking to a young Mexican fella today. We was talking about, he didn't know about Cortez and biological warfare. Why you act like that don't exist? We just had an Ebola outbreak to where everybody was freaking out over there in Africa. All it takes is one here. We want to talk about the face of terrorism. The face of terrorism are the United States politicians responsible for bringing that heroin over here. That's terrorism. We have bodies dropping daily. Everybody's afraid of getting shot and killed in a school. Why are you not afraid of getting ran off the road by that heroin dude who's driving a truck in Nodden that I saw running to the curb last week? Twice. He ran into the curb. I went to
in an 18-wheeler.
No, not in the pickup truck. He was in an SUV.
Okay.
I'm walking down the street. Dude runs into the curb and I see him. I'm like, oh my God, what in the world? I look at him. I'm like, dude's nodding out. I get over to the truck. There was another guy who made it to the truck before I did. And he got to do the, as soon as he came to, he said, oh no, I'm fine, I don't need any help. Vroom. Took off down the street. Circled the block. Next thing I know, I see him run into a house. I see the dude run into a house. That's terrorism. When I can't drive down New Circle Road without people falling asleep, I've seen one heroin addict fall asleep at a stoplight on New Circle and Boardwalk. And not only was he was supposed to be going straight, going towards like, he's on, I guess, what's that, southbound? Going towards Georgetown Street at the Boardwalk where
oh man, heck, don't get me lying.
You know where Boardwalk is.
Yeah, I know where you're talking about, but I don't know.
So he's going towards Georgetown Street. Okay. You know, he's at the light.
So he's headed to the west.
He's headed to the west.
From the north. From the north.
Go sleep in a car. The car just starts moving across the median. Luckily, no cars hit him, and he ran into a car oncoming traffic on the opposite side of New Circle Road. He ran into oncoming traffic. Those are the things that I think people need to be more concerned about. Because while the students are sitting here saying, oh my God, we need gun control. We need to stop guns. Let's be realistic. You telling me that I'm gonna send BJ to the military when he turns 18? He does a tour for 2 years. He comes home when he's 20 and he can't have an assault rifle that he was using over there in the military? Kids are terrified of going to school, but they go every day. Not only do they go to school, they say, hey, mom, the prom's coming. Can I have $300 to buy a dress? You gonna go get dressed up to go to school to get shot up? If you was afraid of going to school, you wouldn't be going to the basketball games. You wouldn't be going to the soccer and the football games. You wouldn't be going to the parties and the socials and the proms and the homecomings, this, that, and the other. So these children really are not afraid. They just want something to belong to. My daughter wanted to participate in the walkout. She wanted to protest. I said, well, okay. Why? Because we're going to stop gun shootings. And do you think that by you walking out of school in Lexington, Kentucky, that you can stop the next person in Ohio from shooting up a school, or West Virginia, or wherever else? Their thinking is not logical, based on society saying protest. That's what we're supposed to do, is protest. So in America, once again, the media has shaped the culture to where if we want to protest, we go get pieces of cardboard and we hold signs with great slogans on them like Black Lives Matter or F you Trump or whatever the heck you want to put on there. That's how we protest. You asked about cultures and psychology and self-talk. Over there, they self-talk is different. I will die for God. So you say the new face of terrorism. one thing that I would say is the Pulse nightclub. That was a guy who had firm beliefs based on his Bible and his spirituality. The beliefs that he acted on are also in the Christian Bible. The Bible says that men should not be effeminate, and in the event that they are, execute them on the spot. So his self-talk is, I'm doing what God has commanded and ordained. Do you think he feels like a terrorist or a cleanser? But when we live in a society full of wickedness, full of hatred, we live in a modern day Sodom and Gomorrah. America is the Sodom and Gomorrah. America is the worst nation probably in the history of nations with all the stuff we got going on over here. You got men dressing like and changing body parts and this, that, and the other. You got women who feel like they're supposed to be the head of the household. We got children who don't respect their parents. We have all this stuff, and the Bible foretold this. So it's not like it's a secret that we didn't know it was coming. But at the same time, we just sit back and want to point the finger and say, you know what? The people who look like Brennan are the terrorists. Because my self-talk tells me I'm black and I'm proud. I love being black. So since I love being black, I'm not going to go out of my way to seek or find fault with other black people. I will give you a pass and say, yeah, Brandon slapped me in my mouth, but he only did it because he really wanted to get back at the man for the oppression that he's dealt with for so many years. The Europeans, on the flip side, they think the Europeans are great. We're good people. We go to church. We vote. God bless America. We love our children. We pay our taxes. We should be able to control the world. That's why they don't look at themselves, because their self-talk is white people, good, God, holy, pure, clean. Everybody else got to be the problem. It ain't us. God ordained us to take over the world because them darkies couldn't do it without us. They don't wear clothes. Them Mexicans couldn't do it without us. You know, they used to sacrifice humans. The Pacific Islanders can't do it without us. They can't even find their way to a big place. You know, a continent as opposed to an island. Everybody got an excuse. But if you look at it realistically, the self-talk is what's killing America. You can't tell me nothing. Why not? I can't tell you as a black person that I think that your group is terrorists. These police officers shooting people, is that not an act of terror? You don't think the people that's running from these... The fact that people run from police means they're afraid. So if you run from somebody because you're afraid and then they shoot and kill you because you... Is that not terrifying to the person that died? Now, do I agree with running? No. But are they not terrified? So this new face of terrorism is you. It's me. It's BJ. It's the white dude walking his dog down the street. It's the white woman over there in Kroger's. It's the everybody at Starbucks. Everybody is the face of terrorism. You can't put it on darkies no more. You can't put it on the Arabs no more. White folks, yeah, hey, there's been a shift in consciousness. Since approximately 2011, 2012, there's been a shift in consciousness, and up like a positive shift. People are more and more conscious today than they were yesterday. Because we're more conscious, I believe, honestly, that accounts for the new face of terrorism. When you have people that are blowing up government buildings, you have people that are seeking to destroy the World Trade Center, and we want to do this, that, this, that, this, that. The majority of people, including millennials, have an anti-government mentality. If Bernie Sanders would have won that Democratic thing, he would be the president right now. It's the reason Hillary cheated him out of office and then lost. But I mean, think about that face of terrorism as it really is. I got a white friend named Joe, and Joe and I talk every day at work. So now Joe realizes how bad black people really got it. So now Joe is saying, wait a minute. They told me that Christopher Columbus was a good guy and George Washington was okay and acceptable, and this is positive, and Jesus was white, and everything that you tell me is a lie. So now I don't know how to feel. Your lies are catching up with you. So for instance, I think that's what's happening in our culture. If I go to as a man, I talk to a woman, hey baby, I love you, I think about you every day, I do this, I do that, I do this, and then you come to find out everything I said was a lie, and I'm just playing you, that woman gonna get mad. So when she get mad and key my car, can I call her a terrorist, or is she a victim?
mean, she's a victim as long as she just keys your car and don't start going out everybody else's car that looks like yours.
Yeah, I just feel like it's way heavier than people want to make it out to be. We're going to do gun control. Like you said last week, heroin's illegal. Everybody's still overdosing on it. Speed limit 25 in Lexington unless otherwise posted. And they give out traffic tickets every single day because even the good law-abiding citizens still don't follow the law. And if they think they'll get away with it, they will. And that's the problem. We don't have morals or morality. Our morality in this nation is not based on being a Christian or a Muslim or a Jew. Now, over in the Middle East, it is. So the terrorism that is taking place over there is based, at least it's scripturally based. I can't say it's right or wrong. You can call them radicals or extremists. I call them people who fed up. Now, does that make me a Muslim sympathizer? Or does it make me a human being with empathy? I can see what you're doing to those people over there. They don't want homosexuality in their culture, but you're trying to force it on them. They don't want two-piece bikinis over there, but you're trying to force it on them. They don't want pornography in their country. You're forcing it on them. They don't want drinking in public, but you're forcing it on them. They don't want Christianity because they see how evil and wicked Christians act, but we're forcing it on them.
That's why you gotta call them so-called Christians, you know, because people like, you know, the Christian faith in America, you can't, even though when folks say that folks are born and most people are Christians, so-called Christians, gotta be so-called because you don't live a clean life, so therefore you're not a follower of Christ, so therefore you can't be a Christian.
I agree.
So-called wannabe Christian,
yeah,
is at best.
I agree with that. I don't have no argument with that whatsoever.
No,
I mean, just look at the situations we dealing with. America is I hate to say this, but a level 3 consciousness as a nation. The average American citizen would probably have a level 5 consciousness, a level 4 or 5, but as a nation, the United States of America has a level 3 consciousness, which means I can take whatever I want. America leads by force. So when you lead by force, sometimes you will meet an equal or opposite force as opposed to power. And I think that the problem is that America is trying to force their way of life on everybody else, and they're creating terrorists domestically as well as, you know, abroad.
I heard from somewhere that you can tell how a father can tell how well he raised his son by the actions of the grandson and by the fruits that the grandchildren produce. So everybody talks about the forefathers.
You can't say that on radio.
Everybody talking about these.
I see where you can't do this on the radio.
The forefathers. Right now, we are looking at the grandchildren of those forefathers. The forefathers were very rotten. They was very violent, murderous, heathenish group of individuals.
By American standards.
By American standards. Now, generations later, we're starting to see the fruits that they produced in the forefathers' grandchildren. And they're becoming even more ruthless than those forefathers that everybody loves to talk about.
Well, there's this little book I'll be reading. They black sometimes says Holy Scriptures. There's somewhere in there that says what you reap is what you sow. Meaning what you put into life is what you get back. So if you build a country on oppression, you use your power in a forceful manner, and you force people to work for free, and then you got to cut them loose. And then you think, oh, they're going to play nice. You force women to be second-class citizens, and then you think that, oh, they're going to take it. So the new face of terrorism is everybody but the white man, if you really want to be honest. Now, the white man is the new face of terrorism in that he's the one shooting up everything, mass shootings, but the white man will paint the picture of it's women and that feminist movement. It's the blacks and their Black Lives Matter. It's the Muslims and it's the Arabs and their Islam. If you ever look at it, everybody's the terrorist, but the group of individuals responsible for the most heinous acts of terror. It was a white man that dropped that bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. It was a white man who ordained the Crusades to go killing folks around the world. It was the white man who decided, hey, let's go give the Mexicans smallpox and kill all of them. It was the white man who said, let's exploit the whole continent of Africa.
Now, whose grandchildren are suffering the most from the heroin pandemic?
Not mine.
Whose grandchildren are striking fear in the hearts and souls of all the Europeans across America?
I mean, when you really look at it, the funny thing is, in this country, white folks stick together. You leave America, other white people see white American males as oppressive the same way we do. Got a dude in France I be kicking it with on Facebook, talking back and forth. You'd be surprised at things that they love blacks, aboriginals. When you go to Denmark, where Uncle Paul and Aunt Adora from, she said they love, the darker the skin, the more they love you. They excited because, you know, they far up north. It's rainy all the time. They have very pale skin. So their self-talk is, we don't like our pale skin. Darker melanated skin of any shade is beautiful. So they self-talk has them looking at black people and put them on a pedestal because, oh, look at those beautiful people. The Americans, on the other hand, the blacks are responsible for, look at Chicago. You know why they talk about Chicago? Because they don't want to talk about the heroin overdose rate. You know why they talk about Chicago? They don't want to talk about the suicide rate amongst civilians or the troops. You know why they talk about Chicago? Because if they talk about Chicago, they can point a picture and say that black people that look like BJ are the terrorists, and they won't have to look at Donald Trump and say, look what he's doing. He dropped the mother of all bombs.
M.O.B.
You feel me? It's crazy to me.
Oh, was it?
We got 45 seconds left.
I think it was Moab. Was it?
Yeah, mother of all bombs.
Yeah, mother of all bombs. Well,
we got 30 seconds.
Solution: don't point the finger. Just get to work. Figure out for yourself what the issues are and fight diligently to protect yourself and those that you love. That's it. That's all I got. You know, love y'all. Blackout Radio with the Dumb Boys. We'll see y'all next week, God willing.
Most definitely. With that being said, much love, peace, and blessings.